Mr. Chawla, let me come to you now, sir. As far as the disinvestment roadmap is concerned, what has been budgeted is 47,000 crore rupees. It's fairly modest. But I think the larger question that people want to know is there a lack of appetite at this point in time to move aggressively on disinvestment? And we've seen this number shrinking over the last few years. Is that because you believe that it's hard to disinvest, or you believe that there is no appetite for disinvestment? If you can lay out the roadmap as far as the disinvestment roadmap is concerned and the thinking behind that number.
Thank you. I would like to first clarify that there is a composite strategy as far as public undertakings, public enterprises is concerned. The whole idea behind bringing the Department of Public Enterprises and DIPAM together was essentially to emphasize that corporate strategy and asset management go together, and that we should look at them in a composite way, so that public enterprises play their rightful role in the economy. We have clearly said so, that private sector must keep growing and it must occupy a greater share of the economy. But public sector, being publicly owned, has a responsibility. It must become competitive and it must share its wealth with the Aam Aadmi, with the common citizens, with the ordinary investors, who is investing increasingly his hard-earned money and his savings into these assets and deriving returns therefrom. And therefore, our strategy is calibrated. And as part of this value optimization and value creation strategy, we follow four or five different things. And the most important being that with corporate strategy and asset management coming together, we are very careful about corporate performance. We have guiding parameters. We monitor the PSCs very carefully and advise corrective action wherever we think they're going off track. At the same time, as you know, CapEx just does not come from the budget alone. It comes from state governments, it comes from local governments, and it comes from PSUs.
Yeah.
And if you see, almost 4 lakh crores of capital investment comes from PSUs. And it is one of our jobs to monitor that and ensure it is on track. Thirdly, we have to ensure a consistent flow of dividend so that the wealth in the public sector is shared with everyone and dividends flow consistently to all stakeholders, particularly the minority shareholders. Last but not the least, we focus on the strategy is calibrated asset monetization. For example, if we did not list the LIC, would you know its market value is 6 lakh crores? And therefore, it is important that you move in steps which are careful, which are calibrated to market, which maintain market value, which are careful about investor appetites, and most important, take care of minority stakeholders.
They're all good points, sir, but if I may ask you a direct question before I get the audience in, what is the IPO pipeline that we can realistically expect as far as PSU listings are concerned? You gave us the example of LIC. What are we talking about as far as FY26 is concerned?
I would not prejudge or communicate market-sensitive information, but what is in the pipeline is already known. It is moving along track, and we'll make the right announcements at the right time.
At the right time. So very quickly to the both of you, and this is a question that's come in since you were talking about dividend. Dividend receipts have increased by 12% in FY26. Even if the RBI gives 2 trillion rupees again, it suggests an over 40% growth in non-RBI dividends. How does this math add up? Finance Secretary, would you like to start? And then I'll come to Mr. Chawla.
Well, if you really look at the dividend, as Arunish mentioned, we are looking at consistent dividend, not maximization of dividend. Because if you maximize the dividend, you basically evacuate the money out, and then it doesn't help for growth of the company. So there is a consistent dividend policy, and consistently also the targets of dividend are being met. Because there is a growth in profitability and there is a growth in overall, in terms of absolute terms also the profitability increases. So if you really see the last few years, the CPSC, the dividends, they are always exceeding the targets. And this year the target is 69,000 crores, which will hopefully be met.
It will be met or bettered?
It will be met because it's a budget target.
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Chawla, you wanted to come in.
I just wanted to reinforce that point that dividends, the public sector dividends were almost 1.25 lakh crores the previous year. We are seeing a sustained near 15 to 20% growth year on year. You would expect them to pay out dividends of 1,40,000, 1,50,000 crores, and only say half of it will go to the government. The remaining half will be shared with the people of India.
Will be shared with the people of India. The people of India have questions.
The people of India mean the shareholders.
Yeah, we got that, sir. We got that. Shareholders, taxpayers, we've got plenty of, perhaps both sitting here in the audience. Let me come across to you. If you could introduce yourself very briefly and ask your question, sir.
Hi, I'm Sandeep Bhalla. I'm from Dawra Advisors, and there is one question which I have. Shin spoke about, beneficial tax rate for new manufacturing units, and she spoke about how US is, incentivizing corporate tax, reducing the corporate tax. Is there a thought process on why this was not extended in the current budget, or is there something which is we should be expecting soon?
So the expectation was that you'd bring back the concessional scheme, perhaps with 15% or 18%. The sun had set on it in 24, but you chose not to do that. Why not?
I think we don't want to create another scheme for that. We already have two. We don't want to create the third. I think that particular scheme of manufacturing companies was for a limited period it is a post-COVID issue when we wanted certain manufacturing to be quickly initiated. And that was initiated for only the companies which were incorporated fresh, which actually came into commercial production between that period. So it was for a particular purpose. Broadly, the corporate tax reform has already taken place in terms of, the reduction in corporate rates. If you see the new regime, the corporate rates have already been reduced. And it was reduced, in 23. And so therefore, the same system continues. Now, when you are, doing that corporate tax, you don't again create another subcategory of new manufacturing and old manufacturing. If you are manufacturing, you should be taxed the same way. Not that, you set up one plant and it will be taxed differently. And if you are in the old plant, that will be taxed separately. A company is taxed. So I think it was not really a very good way of complicating the scheme. We are for simplification. We want actually more and more new regime to come in. However, corporates are there in the old regime still. Some of the reasons are their own deductions which have been available to them, which are much larger. So slowly they are also coming over here. About 20% of the companies and 50% of revenue has already shifted to the new regime. And I hope that, this will be a gradual process. As far as the individuals are concerned, 75% people have also shifted to the new regime already. Yeah. And we hope that with the latest reforms in PIT, personal income tax, almost everyone will shift to the new regime.
Sir, a quick clarification from you. You talked about that concessional tax scheme, and when we saw the corporate tax reduction take place in 2019, the revenue foregone estimate that the government had put forward, what is the actual revenue foregone on the front of the corporate tax reduction that took place? Because there is some clarification required on that front, linked to the fact that you've budgeted 1 lakh crore rupees as the revenue foregone for personal income tax. The question is it likely to be much higher? Is this more conservative of an estimate that the government has put out?
Well, if you look at the receipt budget, we give a full statement of what is the revenue foregone and what for it is. So please refer to the receipt budget and you will know that if you have this deduction on account of that, how much is the revenue foregone. Coming to the PIT question, now 1 lakh crore is what we have said that we will actually not basically charge and then rebate it also, in some cases not charge. So 1 lakh crore is basically goes back to taxpayers.
Yes.
And obviously we have taken into account that while budgeting our revenue numbers.
So linked to that question is also the fact that are you concerned about the tax base erosion and the kind of pressure that this now puts on the even smaller tax base that you're going to have to work with? Yes, it's relief for a large population of the country and everyone is giving you 2 thumbs up for that. But as policymakers, are you concerned about the tax base erosion that this brings about?
We are not concerned because the point is that we have to collect the tax. We can't keep collecting taxes from this thing where we should not be collecting taxes. It is basically a public choice. It's a public choice. It's a political decision. It is a decision based on what income you are going to be taxing. So when you are saying we increase the tax base, number one, returns will have to be filed in any case. It's only up to 0 to 4 lakh category which is having a nil rate. They will be exempt not to file the returns. But anybody who is looking for rebate, the returns will have to be filed because then only TDS need to be refunded back. And we have a very good system where, the refunds can be pretty quick and, it's largely processed. For your information and information of your viewers, 99.7% returns today are self-assessed, both PIT and corporate put together. The onus is today, it is much like the new kind of governance, where most of the time, like earlier, you used to fill up a paper form and used to give on a window. And then the window will actually translate that paper form into its own system and make an entry, right? And most of the time, there will be some mistake in that data entry, and then you will be struggling to correct your name or this or that, because something which, is a process. That has totally undergone a change. Now, we are portal-based. You open a portal, you do that, and in income tax case, since the PAN number is there, the linkage is there, you don't have to even type your name. You simply get into the PAN, you go into your database, and you look at the AIS. And all in your AIS, you see all the transactions which is there. So we are able to, through a network of information, bring that information together for taxpayers. And it is like, producing a ledger for them. And it's such a good facility.
No, but I think the question that people are asking, and these are many questions that have come to me on this issue, is that instead of expanding the tax base, we're actually shrinking the tax base further. Your comments on that, sir?
Well, I would say that, certain number of taxpayers, say when we are saying that between 7 lakh, which was earlier not paying any tax, and between 7 and 12 lakhs, 1 crore more people will not have to pay any tax. So that part is there. But what we assume is that, okay, the incomes are also rising. The more number of people will graduate from which used to be earlier 12 lakhs and below into this category. And more people will be added, will also keep expanding the tax base. It is not good to really say that just because, you want a tax base, that you must tax the existing tax fellow again and again. You must bring newer tax people into the base, rather than trying to overtax the people who are already in.